Have you ever wondered in those quiet moments when your cell phone is off and you're not waiting for a call, a tweet, a twat, or a twerk? Have you ever wondered what it's all about? Or in those moments between Facebook posts and Instagram posts and checking your Tumblr to see if someone has shared your picture about something that you've done or liked your post that you've posted just so that you can feel connected. Have you ever taken the time to think, have I done all that I could do? Or have I just frittered away my life, doing what I was expected to do, because I was too afraid to face the truth? Well, had you taken the time to consider this, you might have entered into that area, this bed of thorns that so many people are afraid of, called quiet contemplation or peaceful recollection, a time when the most fantastic things can happen. T.S. Eliot took the time to consider just such things, and he came up with the poem that I'll be reading for you tonight, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Now, the Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock takes the form of the musings of a plain, middle-aged man in the modern world who takes a look back at his life and sees that he was afraid to take even the tiniest risks because he was afraid of what others might think of him. He sees how many of us live our lives paralyzed by fear of social disapprobation, and then we die. Eliot wrote this poem in his early 20s, very early 20s in fact, so he didn't know what it was like to be a middle-aged man. It was an act of supreme imagination. And many people find this poem to be quite difficult. But I contend that the images are so strong that if you exercise your own act of imagination, you can see the poem as it unfolds, and you'll be just fine. Now, besides being a bit of a genius, T.S. Eliot was also more than a bit of a snob. He refused to delineate any of his literary allusions, and when he put an epigraph at the beginning of a poem, as he did in this one, he put it in the original language. Now, I'm not so highbrow. Some may even argue that I'm really quite lowbrow, bordering on off-brow. So I'm not afraid to tell you a few things about this poem. The epigraph comes from Dante's Inferno, and I believe it's the 27th book, lines 61 to 66. And it takes place, the Inferno, by the way, is written by Dante, a 14th century poet, and it's an epic poem. And the Inferno is the first book of the Divine Comedy. There's the Inferno, the Purgatorio, and the Paradiso. In this book, Dante, in the middle of his life, gets lost in the woods and finds himself guided by the Roman poet Virgil into hell. And in this section, he reaches the 8th circle of the 9 circles of hell, so it's pretty far down. And this circle is designated specifically for frauds. And he meets a man, actually he meets a flame, and this flame is the soul of a man named Guido da Montefeltro. I'm going to have to put my glasses on for this, dears. Hold on just one moment. There we go. Now, Guido da Montefeltro is in hell because he was a fraud, and Dante meets him, and Guido speaks these lines because Dante says, "Who are you?" And we can see by the epigraph that this is a man who's severely afraid, even in death, of what people think of him. So, I'll get right to the poem. I'll read the epigraph and then we'll begin. One last thing before we begin, and this is something that the poet Mark Strand pointed out years and years and years ago. The first line of the poem is grammatically incorrect. It says, "Let us go then, you and I." And it should really be, "Let us go then, you and me." But I think we can cut the young genius a little slack, don't you? Okay, so now, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, with the epigraph first and then the poem. The love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. And this is from Dante, book 27. If I thought that I were speaking to a soul who someday might return to see the world, most certainly this flame would cease to flicker. But since no one, if I have heard the truth, ever returns alive from this deep pit, with no fear of dishonor, I answer you. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels, and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells. Streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent, to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. In the room the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes, the yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep. And indeed there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. There will be time to murder and create, and time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions, and for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of a toast and tea. In the room the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. And indeed there will be time to wonder, do I dare? And do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair, with a bald spot in the middle of my hair. They will say, how his hair is growing thin. My morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin, my necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. They will say, but how his arms and legs are thin. Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute there is time for decisions and revisions which a minute will reverse. For I have known them all already, known them all, have known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. I know the voices dying with a dying fall beneath the music from a farther room. So how should I presume? And I have known the eyes already, known them all, the eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase. And when I am formulated, sprawling on a pin, when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall, then how should I begin to spit out all the butt ends of my days and ways? And how should I presume? And I have known the arms already, known them all, arms that are braceleted and white and bare, but in the lamplight downed with light brown hair. Is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? Arms that lie along a table or wrap about a shawl. And should I then presume? And how should I begin? Shall I say, I have gone at dusk through narrow streets and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows? I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. And the afternoon, the evening, sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or it malingers, stretched on the floor here beside you and me. Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head, grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I am no prophet, and here's no great matter. I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker, and in short, I was afraid. And would it have been worth it, after all, after the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me, would it have been worth while to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it toward some overwhelming question, to say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. If one, settling a pillow by her head, shall say, that is not what I meant at all. That is not it at all. And would it have been worth it, after all? Would it have been worthwhile, after the sunsets and the dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels, after the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this and so much more? It is impossible to say just what I mean. But as if a magic lantern threw the nerves and patterns on a screen, would it have been worthwhile if one, settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl, and turning toward the window, should say, that is not it at all. That is not what I meant at all. No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. Am an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, start a scene or two, advise the prince, no doubt an easy tool, deferential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious, and meticulous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse, at times, indeed, almost ridiculous, almost at times, the fool. I grow old, I grow old, I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I have heard the mermaids singing, each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back when the wind blows the water, white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea by sea-girls wreathed with seaweed, red and brown, till human voices wake us, and we drown. Now, my little mischievous ones, there will be time, but only just a little, to notice that the world is full of wonder. Pay attention. In our last few moments here in the Teacher's Lounge, which in a lovely little tit-for-tat that Sergio led us into, let us contemplate in our last few moments here before we return to the sub-basement next week. The words of a wise, wise man, Mike Tyson. And I am not kidding. I love that guy. These are the words of Mike Tyson. Settle back into your comfy little Teacher's Lounge seats and pay attention. Mike Tyson says, I'm not afraid to lose in life. I'm not afraid to do anything. There is nothing I would do unless I have a possibility of being humiliated. If I can't be humiliated if I fail, I don't want to do it, because only by doing that will I rise to my highest potential. A smart man, Mike Tyson. Until next week, when I'll see you again in the sub-basement. Mwah. I am Toulouse-Lautrec, and this be the verse.